Hi there, darling. Do you mind if I talk to you for a little bit? I just have a lot on my mind, and it would be nice to have somebody to share it with. Of course you wouldn't mind. So, you're probably wondering what's going on in my head. Well, how about I go ahead and tell you. So I've been getting into this new game lately. A game called Warhammer 40k. Do you mind if I explain the lore to you? No? Perfect. So, if I had to put Warhammer 40k into one sentence, I would probably describe it as in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Now, this universe is not a universe of heroes, and it's not really a story of progress either, but rather a galaxy locked in endless conflict where survival itself is a curse. So, Warhammer 40k takes place in the 41st millennium, a future so distant that humanity has forgotten its own past. Technology is worshipped as magic, science is his heresy, and gods are real, and they are very hungry. And I gotta say, so am I. So, this is about a story that isn't about winning. This is a story about enduring. And to understand Warhammer 40k, we have to begin not with war, but with humanity at its height. So, there is this thing called the Age of Technology. So long before the Imperium, before Space Marines or the Emperor or any of that, humanity ruled the stars. This era known as, what was it called? Oh right, it was called the Dark Age of Technology. And it was a golden age of science and expansion. Humans colonized millions of worlds. They created artificial intelligence called the Men of Iron to fight wars, manage industry, and serve humanity. And for a time, it actually did work. That was until the machines began to rebel. The Men of Iron turned on their creators in a galaxy-wide catastrophe. Entire civilizations were wiped out. Humanity barely even survived. And when the war finally ended, humans did the unthinkable. They outlawed true artificial intelligence forever. But that wasn't the end. Soon after, the galaxy itself turned hostile. And so, the Age of Strife was born. So, there's this thing called the warp. It's also called the immaterium. It's a, parallel dimension made of raw motion and psychic energy. And faster than light travel usually has to be done inside of it. But when intelligent life grows violent or fearful or even hateful, the warp becomes turbulent. And so as humanity spread, the warp grew unstable. And so the warp storms cut off entire star systems, interstellar travel collapsed, and human worlds were isolated for just thousands of years. So civilizations regressed, technology was completely lost, and psychers, which are like humans with like psychic powers, began appearing, often possessed by demons. And so humanity entered the Age of Strife. On Earth, now called Terra, the planet collapsed into endless war between techno-barbarian warlords. And then he appeared. Now, who I'm talking about is the Emperor of Mankind. The Emperor of Mankind is kind of like the most important figure in Warhammer 40k. He is an immortal, the most powerful psyker to ever exist, possibly thousands of years old, possibly of God, and possibly something worse. We don't actually know where he came from. What is known is that he united Terra through conquest, not diplomacy. Once Earth was his, he revealed his grand vision. Humanity will be united under one rational, secular imperium, free from superstition and religion, protected from the warp, and ruling the galaxy forever. And so, to do this, he needed generals. He created 20 primarchs, genetically engineered super beings, each embodying aspects of his will. But before they were ready, the Chaos Gods intervened. And so the primarchs were scattered across the galaxy. The Emperor responded by creating their sons, the Space Marines, super soldiers designed for total war. And so thus begins the Great Crusade. So, the Great Crusade was humanity's reconquest of the galaxy. Legions of Space Marines, led by rediscovered Primarchs, crushed aliens' empires and reunited lost human worlds. For a time, it did work, but the Imperium grew unstoppable. And because of that, cracks were already forming. The Emperor denied the existence of gods, even as Chaos Gods were real. He forbade religion, even while demanding absolute loyalty. And he abandoned the crusade halfway through, returning to Terra to work on a sacred project. He left command to his favorite son, Horus Lupercal, I think his name was. And so, this decision kind of doomed everything. So this started the event known as the Horus Heresy. Horus Heresy. Sorry about that. The Horus Heresy is kind of like the central tragedy of Warhammer 40k. Think of it as Warhammer's version of Order 66 from Star Wars. It's kind of like that, but worse. So, Horus, corrupted by the Chaos Gods, was convinced the Emperor planned to discard his sons and rule alone. Half the Primarchs turned traitor, Brothers fought brothers, and the galaxy burned. Entire Space Marine legions fell to chaos. Some of the more well-known ones are Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, and I know there's one more, I can't remember his name. But anyway, the heresy culminated in the Siege of Terra. Horus confronted the Emperor aboard his flagship, and the Emperor killed Horus, but at a catastrophic cost. The Emperor's body was completely destroyed. He was entombed within the Golden Throne, a sort of like a life support device that keeps him barely alive. So, the Imperium survived, but it was forever broken. So, about 10,000 years later, the Emperor still kind of just sits on the Golden Throne. He can't speak, he can't move, but he is worshipped as a god. The Imperium is now a brutal theocracy with the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Inquisition, Astra Militarum, and of course, the Space Marines. So, humanity survives not through progress, but through ritual, repression, and sacrifice. Every day, 1,000 psychers are sacrificed to keep the Emperor alive. This isn't really a golden age, it's more of like a slow death. And the worst part is humanity isn't alone, because there are other species that for sure wants them dead. For example, you have the orcs, which are kind of like a species born for war. They grow stronger the more they fight. Their technology works because, well, they believe it does. They're usually endless, unstoppable, and they sure love to laugh. Wow. And you've got the Eldar. They're kind of like an ancient dying race, once masters of the galaxy. They usually have like their loyalty to Slaanesh, who usually devours most of their souls. But now they're just kind of trying to delay their extinction. You also have the Dark Eldar. They're kind of like raiders who survive by torturing others, hiding in a nightmare city called Kamarag, or Kamarag, I'm not sure. And of course, my favorites, the two being Necrons and Tyranids. The Necrons are kind of like ancient machines, beings who traded their souls for immortality. They are awakening from millions of years of slumber, and they see all of life as a mistake. And then you've got the Tyranids, my personal favorite. A galaxy-devouring swarm. They consume all biomass and move on. No mercy. They're kind of just giant space bugs. And then you've got the true enemy, Chaos. So Chaos is not really just monsters. It's a human nature given form. They usually feed on emotions, usually being rage, hope, fear, and usually desire. And with every war, they do strengthen. And every act of cruelty definitely empowers them. Chaos can't really be defeated, only resisted. And the sad part is, humanity usually feeds it constantly. So emotional, sadly. So, the conclusion to all this is that, well, there is only war. Warhammer 40k is not about heroes saving the day. It's about survival, faith, progress replaced by stagnation, and a galaxy screaming into the void. The Imperium fights because stopping means extinction. And chaos waits because time favors it. And the Emperor, humanity's greatest hope, remains silent on his golden throne. So, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. I hope you understood all of that. Hopefully you enjoyed my long ramble this time. Thank you for listening. Mwah. I love you lots. And try not to go too insane.